All right, guys, welcome back to another video. So in today's video, we're going to talk about what exactly is this Export API. So Microsoft recently announced that the general availability of Graph Export API for Teams. So not exactly this is the recent announcement, but many customers are already using this Export API. So using the Export API, as the name suggests, you can basically export all the data which is there inside Teams chat or all the messages inside the Teams app. You can export all of that. So Export API can access personal data, and Microsoft regards this as a protected API because if you talk about Teams chat, then it is considered as the sensitive data, right? So in order to have access to this API, you need to require to seek approval by describing your intent to use. So once access is granted from the Microsoft, you can incorporate Export API for Teams in your product, and all should be well. So coming to the Export API, Microsoft divides the usage of this Export API into two models. One is Model A and the other one is Model B. Now the app developers need to declare their usage by passing the model they wish to use in the Graph API to fetch it from the Teams data. So we'll talk about how you can use Graph API to use either Model A or Model B, and what are these. So when calling the Export API, developers need to define which model they wish to be charged under by using the query parameter in the call. So if I quickly show you how it looks like, I have this API in Postman right now. And you can see I'm using Teams ID, channel, and get all messages. So this is the Export API, and if you see the query parameter, I'm specifying the model B. So if I click on send, it will give me the result based on model B. And if I need to change this to model A, I'll just simply change the letter B to A, and it will start using model A. Apart from all of this, there is also another model known as evaluation mode, which helps you to do the testing. We'll talk more about it and for the part of the video. Let me go back to the slide. All right, so licensing is the major difference between two models. If you want to use an app based on model A, so the users need to have Microsoft 365 compliance license like Office 365 E5 or Microsoft 365 compliance E5 license. Uh, all of these are applied to the member of the tenant. Guest users are exempted from the licensing requirement as they are considered as federated users. So if I talk about the major difference between Model A and Model B, so Model A focuses on security and compliance. So if your use case is around this, you should be opting for Model A. Model B on that part doesn't require any license. So if you do not have Microsoft E5 license, you can go directly to the Model B as it does not have any license restriction. Okay, coming back to Model A has restricted to application performing security and compliance functions, like the first point I talked about. Whereas the Model B focuses on bulk processing, such as exporting messages created in Teams over a period, like bulk export could be also considered as backup. Uh, if I sum this up now, talk about Model A products like data loss prevention, security scanning, or archiving solution that need to access Teams data quickly. They can opt for Model A. This is basically because, for instance, if you talk about Model A, there's no point in waiting. If you consider security and compliance, there's no point of waiting for 15 minutes before the DLP solution can examine the content of the new channel messages to decide if they violate an organization policy or not. So accordingly, the team's DLP API makes a webhook available for the application to learn about new content, so they can retrieve and process that particular content. And that's the reason Model A is faster in terms of getting all the data from Teams when you compare to Model B. All right. Now, talking about the evaluation model for the development and testing evaluation is there. There is a free tier which is known as the evaluation tier. So this is the one. So the model parameter is not required. Like I said, we can just go ahead and call get all messages and it would by default be in the evaluation mode. There's no licensing requirement. However, it is capped to 500 messages per app per month, and there's no consumption plan on this part. Once the limit is exceeded, you will get 402 error code, which will be returned from the export API calls. And if you are subscribed to change notification, it will stop working altogether. So the 402 error message says payment is required, and that is the error message you will get if you go ahead more than 500 messages per app per month for the evaluation mode. Now comparing the model A and model B, S plus C, the scenario over here we are talking about is security and compliance. So S plus C defines security and compliance. So in case of model A, the license requirement is Microsoft 365 E5 license. So it applies to all of these APIs which are listed here. And this is the seeded capacity. Now, if I talk about seeded capacity defines how many messages can be exported each month in model A without any additional consumption cost. So in terms of change notification, it is 800 messages per user per month. In terms of export API, it is 1600 messages per user per month. And in case of patch API, it is 800 messages per user per month. Now, there are few other APIs which have this seeded capacity. These are only few. You can get the whole list in the Microsoft documentation. So I'll paste the link in the description below for you to text. At the time of publishing, this is the rates as of now. So once you cross this seeded capacity in model A, you will be charged $0.00075 per messages. Okay. In terms of model B, since there is no seeded capacity, since no license is required, each and every message would be capped at $0.00075. So this is what the cost is in terms of model B. So there is another documentation which we can refer, which talks about API terms for security and compliance application. So this document clearly says, talks about what security and compliance means in terms of definition. If you consider terms of what Microsoft consider it as a security and application, uh, then what is end user and what is customer. So all the entities which are included in this API calls are defined over here, and what all things you need to bear in mind. So all those details are listed over here. So I'll paste the link in the description below for you to test. So I showed you how this looks like. Okay, so regardless of whether you're using export API or change notification, the charge will be 0.00075 per message or notification for the model B. So that is one of the thing that you will need to consider. So let me give you a quick example. So let me open my notepad. So if I consider 1,000-person organization, so this is an organization which has around 1,000 members, then if each user generate 100 chat messages per day, okay, per day, which would be around 10 100,000 messages per day, so which would be equal to $75 per day to be notified about every chat message. Now to perform one time export of all the chat message in a week, you would need 1,000 multiply by 100 and multiply by 7, which is 7 days in a week. So it would be around 700,000 messages. So in terms of cost, it would be around 5 to 5 $525. So this is one of the sample example that I have shared with you. You can test and calculate according to your scenario and estimate how much cost it can be. uh, so regarding the costing part, you can check the costing part on your Azure portal in the cost consumption metrics part. Apart from that, so that's all for today, I guess. Thank you for watching, and we hope you find this tutorial helpful. If you have any questions or feedback, please leave them in the comment below. Adios, bye bye.